Good evening. Welcome to the workshop session of the Mayor and City Council of the City of College Park. I'm Mayor Bianca Motley Broom. We have a full quorum present with council members McKenzie, Karn, Arnold, and Gay. So we will start the workshop session right now at 6:02 p.m. Madam Clerk, the first item on the agenda.
First item is presentation on Livable Centers Initiative to the City of College Park presented by Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk. Tonight we'll be talking about a Livable Centers initiative with a new area of focus on the Roosevelt Highway. And to talk about that will be Shannon James, the President and CEO of Aerotropolis Alliance.
And before you walk away, so there might be some of our residents who don't know who you are. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, Mayor. My name is Hiquis Garcia. I am the Program Manager for the Economic Development Department for the City of College Park.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Good to see you. Mr. James?
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
It's good to be here. All right, I'm not sure if this is the, okay, all right, perfect. So excited to be here to talk about a corridor that I think everyone's familiar with. It has multiple layers to it, and our hope is that this process helps clean up a bit and make it a lot more seamless. And so we're excited to have this conversation with the City of College Park. Next slide. What we'll talk about, I think most of you guys are familiar with the Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance, but for those who may not, I will provide at least a brief overview of who we are and what we do, but more importantly, spending time on the actual ask, the presentation. Next slide. Here's a quick snapshot of our team, small but mighty. We have Brian Dorellis, our Vice President, who leads all of our projects, our collectives, who works closely with the state and leads all of our economic, workforce, and community development efforts. You also have Valencia White, who leads our office. We are College Park residents, and so we're right here at the Gateway Center, and we have been since September of last year. And last but not least, Shantae Foster, our Marketing and Communications Manager. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, our work really revolves around really three primary components, which is economic development, workforce development, and community development. We spend a lot of time working with many of your staff, people with the state, as well as governmental agency or quasi-governmental agencies, with economic development, workforce development, and community development. So we're convening, we're meeting, and we're taking that information and we're working to implement. So we're a convening body, a big think tank, and then how do we take those big ideas into action? Next slide. Some of those plans evolve around many projects. One is our Aero ATL Greenway plan. This was an LCI that was done back in 2019. Many of our cities participated. It helped us really understand our built environment, especially with our multimodal networks and our trails, which we identified several gaps in areas to improve to support our region. Next slide. We also worked very closely with the City of College Park on the Willingham Drive corridor. This was another LCI that was done back in, I want to say this was 2021, where we really deep dived and focused on the Flint River headwaters and understanding that Willingham Drive corridor in which the City of East Point, College Park, and Hateville participated. Next slide. Here's a snapshot of one of the action slides that come from the Willingham Drive corridor. It talks about notes of development, opportunities, and some of you may know that we really put the pedal to the metal, if you will, on our multimodal opportunity around the Flint River. We were recipients in our region with a large $64.9 million grant because of this LCI, but the momentum continues, and you'll see just here later. Next slide. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Flint River. We continue to work closely with the working group. Hannah Palmer is still tied, even though she's not necessarily the director, but she's still very closely working with the project. And so we are committed, right? We're committed, dedicated ambassadors and advocates of finding the Flint, which we feel could be a huge asset for our region. Next slide. Tara Boulevard. This LCI was done just in 2024. It really encompassed the entirety of Tara Boulevard, which we worked with the unincorporated section of Clayton County, City of Jonesboro, and Lovejoy. So this was a regional exercise in which we worked very closely together to understand economic development nodes, safety, and other elements of terror in which we are working towards implementation right now. Next slide. Here's a good snapshot of that 11-mile corridor in which we really focused on specific areas. We looked at safety, we looked at trail access, and also the movement of people, right? And so it was a huge success. Next slide. So successful that it has won multiple awards. We recently won an award with the ARC just this past November, and we also won an ACLA award for visionary planning with the state of Georgia. And so this plan has been now elevated. The marketplace is reviewing it, and we're vetting and working with all types of developers and those who are interested in this corridor. And I anticipate you guys seeing a huge difference here in the next 12 to 24 months. Next slide. Now, in regards to the previous grant that we received through the U.S. Department of Transportation, that was $64.9 million. This grant was ultimately lost, right? The new administration came in and decided that, hey, you know, they wanted to go in a different direction. Well, the Atlanta Regional Commission decided we had too much momentum. And so as a result, they allocated $3.5 million this year, the largest they've ever awarded towards trail study, to continue that momentum. And so although the construction costs may have been lost, the momentum is still there and gained. So much so that Fayette, Henry, Coweta, Spalding, there are several cities who are pushing on us to become a part of this network. And so, but we're focused on the Aerotropolis area. And so I'm sure over the next 12 months in which a consultant has been identified, they will be working closely with the city of College Park and many other jurisdictions to move this plan forward. So we're super excited about extending the Atlanta Beltline south into our region. Next slide. Now it brings us to our ask today. Little distorted, but hopefully you guys can see what's actually on the actual PowerPoint. What we're looking at is studying 26 miles along Roosevelt Highway. As you guys know, this corridor encompasses multiple jurisdictions. It also houses many of our city halls, downtown areas, but there's a lack of consistency throughout the corridor. So if you start in the city of Atlanta and you find yourself in Palmetto, you will feel like you've gone through multiple jurisdictions that are spontaneous. And so what we're trying to do is say, hey, let's stop, let's examine this entire corridor, let's bring on a consultant, and let's work with all of our jurisdictions to now understand how can we make this corridor more vibrant, more consistent, less spontaneity, and more safe, right? And how do we move people in a way that is efficient and attractive? And so we have vetted this process with the other jurisdictions. The City of Union City, Fairburn, and Palmetto have all approved and provided us with letters of commitment. We are speaking with the City of East Point today, in which they've verbally given us very much so full support, but we're in the formal section here. And we've gotten a letter of support from the City of Atlanta. And so we have multiple letters of support from other partners like GDOT and the CIDs and others, but it's important that we have this conversation with the City of College Park. The application is due February the 27th, in which we're asking for a big number. $800,000 is the total. Of that $800,000, there's a 20% match, which is roughly $160,000. Of that 160, we looked at each city and the mileage in which Roosevelt encompasses. So there's roughly, I think it's on the slide, but there may be 12 miles in the city of College Park. And so based on that mileage is how we backed into the percentage. So it's very simple, very straightforward, very similar to what we did with Willingham Drive corridor. No different, just for Roosevelt. And so I think it's roughly a $29,000 ask of the city. If we are approved, and that's an if, which we are competing with 10 counties across Metro Atlanta, the approval will come in May of 2026. And so if we are approved in May, funds would be due roughly in, I would say, August, September. And so I think that pushes you guys into your next fiscal cycle. So there's still plenty of time to budget because we're not asking for funds today. If we are approved, we would be asking for funds around the third quarter of this year. And so with that being said, I will yield for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. James. Councilmember McKenzie?
Thank you again, Mr. James, for coming and presenting, and I'm excited about this project, and of course, I've talked to you extensively about it, and my questions have been answered. So basically, all you're asking today is for the buy-in from College Park for us to commit to this, but there's no financial commitment until after this grant or this program is actually, the award is given.
You're spot on, Councilwoman. So we would, in essence, ask for a letter of commitment, and that letter of commitment would allow us to add it to the package and submit on the 25th is what we're pushing for, but the deadline is the 27th.
All right. And one more question. So you're saying, or how many more cities are we still waiting? We have to get a certain amount of cities to agree?
So we're literally waiting on East Point, which is tonight,
Okay.
and so they moved us on the agenda, and so Brian DeRellis is in the city of East Point. They meet at 6:30,
Okay.
and College Park, and so the last two cities are before us today.
All righty. That's all. I have anything.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carn?
All right, Shannon, how you doing?
Hey, Councilman.
All right, appreciate you coming out. Great presentation.
Thank you.
We're excited about it, and I would imagine everybody's in support of something like this. I, for one, am. One of the things that kind of got my attention in your presentation was that the fact that you guys funded the trails portion of the funding, bike trails in College Park. I am interested in possible bike trails in College Park. We've got a lot of areas in some large developments that we're looking at, areas that the topography may not agree with residential or commercial development, for instance. And there are portions of that would be perfect for something along those lines. So I want us to, when you start the regional trail and bicycle facility network plan, I want you to make sure you include us in the mix and see if there's some places we can weave through the trail. Would this be one ongoing connecting kind of a trail deal, or would it be separate trail situations?
So I want to make sure I'm delineating the two, right? So the LCI is specifically for Roosevelt Highway, and so it would literally start from Lee and White down to Palmetto. And so we would want to see multimodal networks through the corridor for sure. Now, that's for the LCI ask. The actual regional plan for multimodal networks that you're seeing, the 3.5 million, that's all throughout, right? That's a regional trail study in which we're looking at the entirety of the city. So that consultant has been identified, and I'm almost certain there'll be big conversations around, where's the interest for the city, and how do we examine the built environment so that we can figure out how to connect. So yes, I guess to answer your question, ultimately yes, but under the regional trail study, which is under the ARC, the 3.5 million.
Okay, and that's the South Metro Trails Leadership Allowance.
You're absolutely correct.
Aerotropolis.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm definitely interested in that when they form that and get it together. All right.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Thank you.
Councilmember Arnold?
Actually, no, I don't have any questions. Thank you for the presentation, very thoughtful, and I'm looking forward to us going for the dollars.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gay?
Sir, I have a couple comments. So for some time, I've been taking on my own initiative to try and figure out the corridor from, I want to say White City Road to Lee Street. So I've driven all the way down. I haven't gone to Palmetto. But it appears that all of the cities, including East Point, all the way to downtown Atlanta, they're all been improved, but our corridor. I talked to Mercedes Miller. She said she don't get it. She don't understand it either. I guess what I'm saying is, since I've lived here since 1998, there have been no improvements from White City Road. You could probably go down to Wayfield. I think.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, can you get your microphone closer?
I
Thank
think
you.
they're just starting to do some improvements right there at Washington Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I don't know. I guess my question is, up until tonight, this is the first time I've heard of any initiative by Aerotropolis or the CID, unless I just haven't been going to meetings. I talked with my my Main Street Board appointee, he doesn't have it. Matter of fact, I even told him to make a meeting with you, because we talk all the time about how we can find improvements. One thing we did on council was we named Roosevelt from Lee to Herschel. We named it Main Street to just try and get to just try and brand it as a hospitality district. And then I talked to, about a year ago, your counterpart, the CID, that didn't go nowhere. And that conversation is about, in fact, Vincent and I taking on our own to do this. We like volunteers, but we took it on our own to even try and talk about a CID amongst the businesses on either side of the road, of the track. I've gone as far as even trying to contact CSX Railroad to see what, if any, funding they could do. Matter of fact, I even use my community enhancement money to clean, if anybody ever go to Global Gateway to Herschel, I cleared that whole thing up there, right? And then I called Francis and Clean and Beautiful like every other week just to pick up litter, right? I got a caller now about the bridge, which is just full of trash. So I guess what I'm trying to say, I appreciate this conversation, but now that I have your attention, there needs to be other conversations about what, if any, role you all play, or CID. We're doing something about 29 now with what other resources we do have. The Works, Georgia Work Source, CSX Railroad, GDOT, Main Street Board. That's what my ask would be. I'm not concerned about the $29,000. I am concerned about some action on that corridor now. I think I share that. I think that's Councilman Corn's ward, but we all drive that corridor every day. It's a hot mess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree with you, Councilman. It needs a lot of attention, and we're located at the Gateway Center, and we drive Roosevelt Highway every day. We've got guests from all over the state who come in who make mention of the highway when they come in, and so I would agree with you. And I sit on the CID board with Gerald, so I'm more than open to having this conversation with him. And I think what we're trying to do now, I think will help a lot of the ask or the risk or the challenges that you've identified. CSX has provided us with a letter of support. They sit on our board. And so we're trying to garner the attention so that it's not just one off, two off. We've got multiple jurisdictions. We've got public and private interests. That's how you move big needles.
So those other cities have a CID. Is that how they're getting all of the sidewalks and streetscapes? Fairburn,
And Union City?
Unions. How are they getting all that? Where's that coming from?
It's coming from their budget, their general fund. You know, what Union City has done is shifted a lot of their funding, and Parks and Rec has led their Vision 2030 plan. So they're allocating funding, including Fairburn. And so they were part of the reason why we pushed this forward a great deal. City of Fairburn is actually going to host this application. So you guys need to know that. City of Fairburn will be our host applicant. So we'll work with them directly to manage the entire process. And so we're taking some of their best practices and how do we share them with partners like College Park and East Point, City of South Fulton, and others about how others are doing things well and how do we emulate that throughout the corridor. So it's consistent and identifying more resources. We've poured on GDOT extremely heavily on this project. It's great questions, great questions.
I have a question to comment. Did you want to speak first?
Councilmember, go right ahead.
I'm glad that Councilman Gay brought that up, because that was another thing I wanted to talk to you, and I had someone I wanted to introduce you to as well. We've been working, this is going to go from Lee and White all the way down. What I would like to have in this project is input from College Park. We understand that you guys have some things that you have in mind for what you'd like to see, but I specifically have been working on Main Street, and we've been working with GDOT, and we have some improvements that we're doing to the streetscape and that whole area. So what I would like to have involved in this is, you know, it's nice to have these great projects come, but we also need input. So I'd like to have someone from College Park to be a part of those meetings and to give input, and because I think that that's what's going to make it even more valued for us. And I can talk to you about it more.
Would love to, Councilwoman, and you're absolutely right. Part of our project proposal is this heavy sense of community engagement. We recognize that extensively when we did Terra Boulevard, which housing actually came up as the #1 issue, believe it or not, on Terra Boulevard. And so as a result, we went after another grant, which we received with the county as a housing grant. And so you're absolutely right. That engagement is everything, and I've made a big note of it, and we'll follow up with you.
And this way, we're all on the same page, because it's like, we've got some things that we want to do, and if that's going to run in line with what you all are going to do, there's no sense in us reinventing the wheel, and no sense in you all trying to invent a wheel that we've already at least formulated.
Yeah, we're big on that, right? We don't want to repeat wheels. We rather identify it, and how do we add strength to it?
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Great questions. Great questions.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. I think this is a great opportunity for not only the city of College Park, for the entire region. And I know that Aerotropolis has been laser focused on moving us forward as a region. And I want to thank you and your team for all the work that you do day in and day out toward that goal. I've had some conversations, and we've had multiple cities along 29 talking with MARTA about some of the plans that they could envision, not full-blown BRT because of the restrictions with the railroad and the spacing, but sort of a modified BRT that could enhance transit along the 29 corridor. I was wondering how familiar you are with those conversations and the extent to which MARTA will be involved.
Excellent question, Mayor. And yes, we are very in tune with those questions. It's coming from College Park and East Point, to be quite honest, and City of Atlanta. If you just go up a few blocks, there's a huge discussion around BRT and what's happening at their transit-oriented development there at their MARTA stop. Councilwoman, well, I guess she's speaker now, Overstreet really led that initiative. And so MARTA did provide us with a letter of support. They have ultimately began to bring us into conversations around what they've been doing around due diligence on the corridor. And some of you guys may know Michelle Arrington. She is our former chair. She's now deputy to Jonathan, and she's basically leveraging us for information. And so I think this process is going to help us understand what does that mean, not only for the city of Atlanta, but for East Point, College Park, and the entire corridor, because there is a big discussion around improving the movement of people along that corridor is actually handicapping our growth.
Absolutely, absolutely. All
Great
right.
questions.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all so much.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Next item is presentation on the scope of work and memorandum of agreement for the South Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan and the City of College Park participation, presented by Lenise Lyons, City Planner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, City Attorneys, City Clerks. Tonight, we have Michael Cray here from the Atlanta Regional Commission to discuss the scope of work and memorandum of agreement for the South Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan update. This will be an update from the 2020 plan that the City of College Park participated in with the other South Fulton cities.
Hello, good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor and Council. Wonderful to be with you tonight. And very apropos, based on the presentation you just saw and the conversation you were having, this is coming at a very good time, I think. So if you go to the next slides here. So first of all, my name is Michael Cray. I'm the program manager for the Comprehensive Transportation Plan program at ARC. And a little bit of background about this program, if you go to the next slide, is basically we started giving money to all the counties in our planning area, the 20-county Atlanta region. And we started doing this back in 2005. And Fulton County is a little different. It's a little unique. Typically, we give it to a full county to do a transportation plan, but we break up Fulton County into three sections. Northern Fulton County with the cities up there. The city of Atlanta has their own, and then Southern Fulton County, the 8 cities of Southern Fulton County. We offer this funding. It's not a competitive grant. It's funding that we offer on a 5-year rolling basis. So once the plan is adopted, 5 years later, the money is available again to do transportation planning in the region. And so we have seen this be a very successful program from our perspective because we were able to allocate some federal funding on our side and allow our constituent jurisdictions to come up with their transportation vision, their needs and their recommendations for projects within their regions. And we at ARC, we really try to be bottom up when it comes to creating our regional transportation plan. And so we want to make sure that our constituent jurisdictions have what they need to create that vision. And so that's what we're talking about today. And so there was a transportation plan for South Fulton region that was adopted back in, I believe, early 2021. And this is something that all 8 cities participate in. And I don't want to say participate. This is your plan for this region. ARC takes a unique role in this compared to the other CTPs, is that we act as project manager. Because there are 8 separate cities and there's not one overarching Fulton County, for example, that we're contracting with. We take the project management role on this, but we have vital input from every city, and the hope is to make it your plan for transportation. So if you have these questions, how do we connect from some new areas to these initiatives that Shannon was talking about? This is a perfect opportunity for you to make that happen. Whether it's talking about congestion, whether it's talking about transit, whether it's talking about bicycles and walking, all of this is an option for this transportation plan. If you go to the next slide. So the benefits of the CTP are really what I was talking about. This is a durable vision that's going to be data-based. It's data heavy. It's going to involve extensive public outreach and also making sure that we have the support from the elected officials, from you all, in this process. And when that all happens, then we have a durable vision over this next 5-year period where you can take that. And we also know that the T-SPLOST is coming up to a renewal vote in 2027, I believe. And so this process will give you a project list that you can then take and move right to your T-SPLOST. So it's actually coming at a really good time from that funding perspective for implementation. And the next slides are really just some examples of, comprehensive plan. So by Georgia state law, you have to do a comprehensive plan every 5 years to stay in compliance with state law. You do not have to do that with transportation. Before we started this program, though, we saw that the typical transportation planning that a lot of cities and counties were doing was just one element of their comp plan. So it was being addressed, but in a relatively shallow way, and that's why we wanted to make sure that we give funding to give a very robust assessment of transportation in the jurisdictions. That's the main difference is comprehensive transportation plans are looking at all modes of transportation. Comprehensive plans are looking at planning and development, and also transportation and other service delivery. If you move to the next slide, this is just an example of the different cities and the local match that we're asking for. And let's keep advancing. Here is an example of the short-term project list that was developed for the 2020 CTP. All different modes of transportation here. I don't know what the implementation rate was on this, but that's one of the first tests that we're going to be doing in this next CTP process, is looking at a report of accomplishments similar to what we do with the LCI program, and then see where we're at from the last plan, and then we can move forward based on that. And then if you just go to the next couple slides, keep going. Yeah, so we're in process of signing the MOA between all the 8 cities and ARC, which is why we're talking today. The MOA is on the regular agenda later this evening. But we want to make sure, we have to get the MOA signed between all the 8 cities, and then ARC will be able to issue an invoice for the local match piece. And then once that's in hand, then we can go ahead and procure our consultant to do the study for us. And then the important one, the next slide here is, so the local match amount is about $15,000. So in total, there's about $1 million in federal funding for this. So it's about a $1.2 million study for the entire region, or the entire South Fulton region. Again, a great time for this when you're looking at the regional trail planning that's happening, the Flint River initiatives that are happening, T-SPLOS coming. It's a very good time to be kind of using this process potentially to kind of tie everything together into one plan for transportation that everyone can refer to. So with that, that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember McKenzie?
Okay, always good to be first, huh? Okay, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you coming out and sharing this with us as well. So basically, you got to get 5 cities to buy in order for us to move forward with this.
5 is the minimum, but we want.
You want all 8, of course.
Yes. We don't want to have a hole in the planning process.
But our commitment of 15,000 stays the same even if we get the 8. Is that based on you having all 8, or is that?
That's based on all 8. Yes.
So now, if it's only 5, does that number change?
Potentially, yeah, that would change because yes, it would change.
Okay.
Yes.
And what is it looking like right now?
It's looking like all 8. We have 2 that have already signed. We have 4 others that are on council agendas, not including College Park. And then we have one last city that's looking to get on their agenda for March, early March.
Okay.
So we've been working hard on this going back to early 2024, coordinating with city staff to work on the scope of work for the study and work on the MOA, all the minutia of the MOA. So we're highly confident that we'll have all 8 cities.
Okay, and so basically you all would be providing project management.
Yes, we will.
For us, because we just had Mr. Shannon come and address some of the issues that so would you be working with them or just us? I mean, how does that, is there any, I mean, maybe you all have not discussed collaboration, but I'm just trying to put these pieces together in my head.
Absolutely. So we will have, ARC will act as we'll have a project manager.
Okay.
Shelby Piccolo is our project manager. She is a project manager at ARC.
Okay.
But our project management team will be made up of representatives from all 8 cities, and the project management team is really the day-to-day direction of the planning process. You know, as project managers at ARC, we're almost figureheads. We're gonna manage the consultant and pay the invoices and things like that. But it's your plan. And we will also have I believe we call it a policy council, which will be made up of the 8 mayors.
Right. So
or their representatives. Yes,
yeah.
That's correct. So we will have two separate layers to make sure that we have input from all the different parties.
So I know it's saying, this is my last question, I'm sure somebody else has more. This CTP has to be completed by May 31st of 2028. So when does we're talking about this plan, the plan would have to be completed by then?
Well,
not the projects?
So we just put an end date on the contract, basically.
Okay.
And so that's the end of the contract. It's typically an 18-month process.
Okay.
So once we procure it and get a consultant on board, it typically takes somewhere between 12 and 18 months. So I think at this point we could probably start sometime around somewhere between June and August. And so 18 months from there is when we would aim to have this complete. And we would just want to make sure we give ourselves enough time on the back end on that for the.
I'm gonna stop so I can give somebody else a chance.
That's a
If
great
they-
question.
If they don't
Great-
ask the question, I'll come back.
I did want to say, with Aerotropolis, absolutely, we will coordinate with them. We already have a great relationship between ARC and the Alliance and the CIDs, and that will be maintained during this process, for sure.
Thanks, Michael.
Councilmember Carn?
All right, thanks for coming. Great presentation as always.
Thank you.
I'm hoping all 8 cities are going to participate. I'm suspecting that they are. I was with a council member from Hakeville earlier today, and I'd imagine just about everybody's going to be coming on board, so I'm looking forward to this.
That's great news.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Arnold?
No questions. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Councilmember Gay?
No questions. Appreciate you coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Craig. This was one of the most extensive outreach studies that I've had a witness to when they did the 2021. There were so many meetings and so many opportunities for residents across all 8 cities to participate, and I was just so impressed by that. There was a real effort, and I thought the folks that did this, is it mobility?
Yeah, modern mobility.
Modern mobility,
Yes.
right. Are they going to be involved this time, or?
They will be able to submit a proposal.
Okay. They did a great job last time. I was really, really impressed.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
But thank you so much for being here. Appreciate ARC's leadership and the way that they make sure that we are one great region.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I've
you.
got one.
Take care.
No one asked my question, but it's really not a question. It's
Councilmember McKenzie, go right ahead.
So basically, thank you. So basically, you would need the 15,000 from us by March 15th. Is that correct?
That is the hope. We will, there's flexibility there, but we will issue an invoice once we have
All
the MOA signed, and they'll, but in order for us to start our procurement process, we want to have that, the local match in hand.
And the reason I'm asking is because, again, we'd be approving 15,000 this evening, but if for some reason you don't get the 8, just, that's my concern, that we would, some way in our language, say 15,000 to whatever the required match
Oh,
is,
yes.
and not be locked in,
Yeah.
so you don't have to come back here again and say, oh, it's 16,000, or it's 18,000.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, there would be some options there. If every city were not involved, we could also always reduce the scope, and to right-size the budget to the local match. That's one option, or the other option, like you're saying, to increase that local match. Hopefully, that won't be necessary.
Well, I really appreciate you coming again, and it's always great when we can collaborate with other cities and organizations.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk?
Next item is presentation of budget modification hospitality fund, presented by Cynthia Hammond, interim finance director.
Good evening, Ms. Hammond.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, city attorney, and city manager. The reason why I wanted to bring this before you is because we had a number of items that have been approved to come out of our TPD funds, and during the budget process, no funds were put into that account to cover these funds. So this is why we're bringing this amendment before you. If you look in your package, you'll see that the total amendment is $6,137,511.10. Of that amount, you will see there is Godby Road Park, Price Barber Shop, the Botanical Gardens, Main Street Train Depot, College Park Historical Preservation Conservancy, and land on Roosevelt Highway. These items have action items that have already gone through the process of being approved by council. I found out later today that there's a resolution for the Botanical Gardens for an additional $5.4 million. That's not included in this packet. I still would like to move forward with getting this approved so that we can have adequate resources for these initiatives. I wanted to share with you each of the action items that were approved. The Godby Road was approved on the March 17th, 2025 meeting. Price Barbershop, April 7th, 2025. The First Botanical Gardens, which I understand now is not the first. The first was actually the resolution for the 5.4 million. The second one was 3 million from TBD, 2 million from the general fund, if I'm not mistaken. There was an additional amount for the Botanical Gardens in the amount of $652,224.10. Main Street Train Depot was $250,000. College Park Historical Preservation Conservancy was $250,000, and the land on Roosevelt Highway was $145,000. If you look through your package, you'll see each of the action items attached. If you have any questions regarding any of these items, I'll entertain those now.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Councilmember McKenzie?
Yeah, I did have a question. I want to thank you, Ms. Hammond, for this. When, in the package that you gave us the workshop agenda for the park on Godby Road, but I didn't see any vote of council from the regular session agenda. Do you have that? I asked for a copy of that earlier today. So I saw it mentioned in it says workshop on the 317 agenda, but I did not see.
Okay, I'll have to go back and research that and bring that back to you.
Okay.
All right.
Councilmember Carn?
All right, thank you. Don't have any questions, but congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Were you made permanent finance director?
Yes.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
When was that effective?
Effective today. Matter of fact, I was going to mention it during my update, city manager's update.
Okay, well, great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Councilmember Arnold?
No questions. Thank you. And we do have the minutes. I believe we came out of executive session giving the former city manager directive to get the parcels appraised. And I believe that was in a February session in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. I think that my assistant can help you identify those minutes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Councilmember Gay?
Will you want us to add the resolution for the First Botanical Garden TBD to this tonight?
I would think that it should be, but I don't have the calculation here.
Well, I got the resolution, and I can add it for you. I'm just saying, we don't want to vote on it and miss it, because it was actually the very first one before any of these was even.
It is the pleasure of this council.
Well, no, I mean, I'm making, Mike, we'd like to add I think it's resolution,
Right, I think we saw that too. I think we should have a copy. Is that dated March 25th or July 21st? Which one? March.
we'd like
Right.
to add this to this amendment.
So we actually saw that. So Finance Director and I, we've had a conversation about where the rest of that funding is gonna come from. So I think that's the discussion that we wanna have. Maybe not here now, but we wanna talk about.
What do y'all want to?
It's a total of 10.4
Y'all want to
million.
bring this back? After y'all get some, it's not on, is it on? No, we need to bring it back because it's not accurate. Or,
I agree.
I would say we bring it back.
I agree.
Well, if you want to make a motion at the top of the meeting to amend
But it's
No.
on there,
it's on the regular agenda, Councilmember, but if you want to,
and it's missing. the whole-
when it comes to amendments, when it comes to amending,
We're doing additions and deletions, what you think?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear what you said.
Do you recommend that we add it to the total amount that we're voting on tonight? or do we table it tonight until they bring it back with the right amount?
It sounds like staff needs some time to make sure that all the calculations are correct. So removing it tonight and putting it on the next agenda, is that the pleasure of staff?
Sure. I mean, we've got to figure out where this $10.4 million is going to come from.
I think I can help y'all on that on Wednesday, on legal review. I think I can help you out a lot on that, okay? I think respectfully, I think the finance director will be able to understand where that's coming from. I don't think that's a discussion we need to have tonight during workshop.
Well, I saw the information that we were forwarded from our financial advisor. I saw that. Is that what you're referring to?
But I don't think she's prepared, nor am I, nor are you prepared to have this conversation tonight.
Question.
Councilmember McKenzie?
So are we saying we're going to table this whole agenda item and bring it back at the next meeting? Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're?
I think that's what I'm hearing from staff.
We're looking at, because I know that even when we vote, I mean, I'm in favor of everything that's there, but I think that we need to have all the proper documentation for the sake of transparency so just, I would say that we just table everything and bring it back at the first meeting in March. And that will give staff the opportunity to have all the proper documentation in the packet as well.
Okay. Councilmember Carn?
Is there anything on the list that we can't pass today and add on after that?
I don't, I was looking at doing it as a whole so that when we did the amendment, we would just be doing one amendment to add the funds to the line item.
Okay, so you'd like to wait too?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I have a question, Mayor.
Councilmember Gay?
When you say amendment, this is not based on the direction I think the consensus is about moving it, but I have another question. When you say amendments, are you asking for directive or consensus rather for you to do budget amendments from the general fund or other funds where these monies are to the general ledger where these funds should be? To explain what do you mean by amendments?
What happened is when they did the budget for FY26, no funds were put in the line item for tourist product development.
Okay.
So now what I'm asking you to do is, based on the items that have been approved, we need to put those funds in the budget and add that to that particular line item so that when we go to pay it, it doesn't look like we're paying money from an unbudgeted line item.
So, on that regard, as of tonight, per your discussion, what is the TPD budget amount as of right now, the fund balance?
Okay, the TPD in my calculation, it looks like it's roughly $8 million sitting in our investment in pool cash.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So, Madam Mayor, since we're talking about TPD,
Mr. Hicks?
Cynthia, please explain the breakdown of that $8 million and what's allocated to what.
Well, that $8 million is not broken down. That is what's left in the account after we pay the general fund and DMO.
Right, but I think that was my point. I think I was very clear and articulate. I said, what is the TPD fund balance as of your presentation? And she replied, I think 8 million.
And
what part of that did I not say correct?
There's one thing though, Councilman Gay, what we need to be clear about, a TPD is an account in the hospitality fund. It's not a separate fund. There is, like, we have Fund 100, Fund 275, Fund 237. TPD is a part of Fund 275, which is the hospitality fund.
I understand, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm clear. I understand that. And for the record, the hospitality balance is 14 million. So let's just have this conversation on Wednesday, okay? We don't need to get
Is that
into
correct,
tonight.
Cynthia? 14 million?
Not by my calculations, no.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
by
wait.
my calculations.
All right,
We'll
well-
just have to see who calculations. I mean, Mine came from finance, I don't know. But that was really what I was trying to go. And congratulations, and I'm sure that the previous city managers should take some credit. But let me ask you this question. What I wanted to know was that budget amendment means what from an accounting point of view? What does that
And
look like? What do you do?
What I do is that particular line item, which is tourist product development, I'm going to add to the budget the amount that needs to be utilized in order to pay those expenses. So, for instance, we have a budget of $10 million. Okay, that budget should have been $16 million based on the items that have been approved for the TPD program.
So you're gonna take the monies out of what Mr. Hicks is saying, the hospitality fund, and you're gonna take the amount that's we've allocated projects for, and you're gonna move that amount into a TPD
Line item,
Now, that TPD has its own GL, right?
correct,
As we speak tonight.
yes.
Okay. All right. And so you're gonna take additional monies out the hospitality. Now, this is my last question, Mayor. Anytime you take monies out of anytime you take money out of the hospitality fund to pay the DMO or the general ledger, the general fund, which can go to other projects, are you required to come to us to do those transfers?
There are certain transfers that are a part of the budget that are done quarterly. So those transfers, no, because they're part of the original budget.
Okay. And last but not least, when you take the money from the hospitality fund, will you be allocating TBD at what percentage?
TPD is allocated at 18.75% of the total. You get 8% is what the total allocation is of that amount. 5 cents is for the general fund. 1 cent, 1.5 cents, which equates to 18.75%, goes to the DMO, and 18.75% goes to TPD.
I agree.
Okay?
I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, sir. Some of this money's already been dispersed, correct? Ms.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like folks are waiting to get paid on some of this. This has already happened, and we're essentially doing sort of a true up.
Yes.
But, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Councilmember Gay answered or asked my question about the balance in the TPD fund. So you're accounting that there's $8 million
Yes.
in the fund currently.
Yes.
And the adjustment that you wanted to have considered tonight was 6.1 million?
Correct.
And so there's another 5.4 that we need to
Consider.
consider.
Yes.
So we've got to figure this out,
Yes.
because that math ain't mathing.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
That's what they need to.
So I suppose we will work on that, and you and your team can come back in March. on
Okay.
that. But you have the next item as well, correct?
Yes.
Next item is a presentation of budget modification general fund.
Okay, this particular modification is also, the first part is really truing up the budget. We've already spent this $4,973,800 on the fire equipment, but we did not have the loan proceeds budgeted in the revenue section, and we did not have the expense budgeted. So all I'm asking is to be able to add these items to the budget so that it doesn't look like we just arbitrarily spent $5 million. Okay, that's the first half. The second half is for Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec had several projects that were supposed to be funded during the fiscal year. Some of those items did not get rolled over from FY25 to FY26. So those projects, Mr. Terry is now asking that we amend the budget to include them in our fiscal year 26 budget. And that amount is $1,465,000.
All right. Councilmember McKenzie?
Thank you again, Ms. Cynthia, and congratulations. I just
Thank
found
you.
it out.
Thank you.
We're sitting right up here just now.
Yes.
And we're just really happy to have you on board.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So basically, my only question is, with this transfer, do we have the money to do this?
Well,
And they won't crazify the, if that's a word, the budget?
well, the $4,973,000 is going to be somewhat of a wash because we received loan proceeds for that.
Okay.
So that will be the revenue side of it. The expense side will be the vehicles new. So they kind of wash each other out. The $1,465,000 is money that we will have to take from our reserves.
That's what I wanted you to clarify.
Yes.
So it's not money that we could just, that we don't have this
We don't
extra
have the
money
revenue to support.
sitting around right
Yes.
now. We'd have to go into the reserves for almost 1.5 million.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Carn?
All right, so this, the 1,465,000, this was not in the budget. That's what you're saying, right?
Correct.
Okay. And this amount has already been spent?
No,
It
not.
has not already been spent.
Lance, you come up and.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The money is short in this year's FY26 budget because of a shortage that was in FY25 budget. So some of the projects that were started in FY25 have had to be funded with the FY26 budget, which is leaving us a shortage of projects we need to get done in FY26.
Okay. I thought I saw a project list at some point somewhere in an email or something, but some of those have already been done, right, as far as the work?
Well, some have. For instance, I've got a printout. Can I pass this out to everyone?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's two.
Okay.
What I have listed here is money that has been already spent out of the FY26 7920 account. So you see here we have everything listed. We've spent like what's that, over $1,500,000, leaves us a balance of around 400-something thousand, and yet we still have to do the playground at Zup Park. We still need to do the community house renovation, and we need to do the parking lot at Phillips Park. And that's what we're asking for on the $1.4 million, is money to take care of those three projects.
Councilmember Carn, any additional questions?
No.
Councilmember Arnold?
I'm actually looking at the handout that you just gave us. And I have a question in reference to the mural at Zup Park, which should have been out of the Ward 3 Initiative capital funds.
Inside of the budget that we had for line item, Michelle had put in there, our former director.
Oh, she
had
put it
there.
inside
She put
of
it
you
inside
all's
of this right
budget?
here. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, and I know that we transferred or should have transferred $315,000 last year from the Ward 3 capital initiatives budget to support the work for the community house.
Mhm. That was transferred into a different account in FY '25. 7530 was the account number.
So the money was used for something else, is what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Instead of you being used for what we voted for it to be used for?
Correct.
Do we know what it was used for?
Different invoices. One of them was the apartment complex off Godby Road. There was a couple of invoices that came out of that account for Chelsea Gardens. Things that we didn't push through as far as recreation.
So let me see if I understand. We voted to allocate money, $315,000 to Parks and Rec for the community house, but those dollars were used for something else that we did not approve.
Yes, ma'am. The line item in that account was $65,000, which was supposed to be for the renovation of the community house.
Right.
$250,000 was transferred in to make $315,000 for the
Correct.
project. And like I say, other invoices went through that ate up that money.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Councilmember Gay?
No questions.
I've got some questions.
I got some empty.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just trying to get this straight. We voted for funds to be utilized for one thing, but they got spent on something else. Okay, I hear that. Now, we're looking at how we can still pay for those projects. Is any of this 1.4, that's what I'm trying to, is any of it been spent already? This 1.4 is?
No, ma'am.
So everything we're looking at that for now is still outstanding? And we
Correct.
would have to take that from the general, no, not the general fund, but the reserves. I guess the question that I have, the general, but you know what I mean, the reserves. I mean, right now, we're paying bills out of the general fund that were budgeted, but the reserves is our savings account.
Correct.
So I guess the question that I have is, if we, because we have a couple of other things that we're looking at that we were going to kind of dip into general fund, if we take this 1.45 million or whatever this is from the reserves, how does this impact what we need to have in our reserves? I mean, we don't like to go below a certain, so that's the question I'd like to, and I don't know if you can answer that now, or maybe you're prepared for that, but how does that impact our reserves?
The requirement is that the reserve is 50% of our expenses on the general fund side. So we're right at that number, which is roughly 27 million in reserves.
Okay, does this include, because also there was a time when we were looking at, when we approved the second 5 million for the botanical gardens, some of that money I think was going to come from general fund, or I don't know if it was coming from the reserves. Is that money set us, I mean, is that an additional?
That's going to be additional.
I don't have any other questions. I got thoughts, not questions right
Okay.
now. Okay, ma'am.
Ms. Hammond, you indicated that some of the items that were budgeted for in FY '25 didn't get rolled over to FY '26. Correct? So does that mean that there was unspent money that went back into the general fund for those projects?
Correct.
Okay. Do we know how much that was?
No, I don't know offhand.
when I was looking at this afternoon, the thing that troubled me, and Councilmember Arnold drilled down on it a little bit, is that there are a lot of things, and I asked you for the detailed report about how money had been being spent from recreation capital. There are a lot of things that are coming out of this account that simply are not items that were in the budget detail when we were going through the budgeting process. There were a number of reports, there were a number of projects that were in, that this council said, we want to fund. Brandon Park enhancements, Conley and Wyatt baby pool replastering, Godby Road playground, the mural at Zup Park and beautification, replacing the Conley air handlers, track resurfacing, Zup and Phillips Park restroom upgrades, and Zup Park playground equipment. And we've gone beyond on Phillips Park enhancements, beyond restrooms. We have spent over $300,000 on the dog park, and that wasn't allotted for in the recreation capital account for FY26. Why are these things coming out of this account?
Prior to, one thing, I can't speak to why it happened then. What I can tell you, what we've done now to keep that from happening, one of the things that we do is before we have something come to you guys, we make sure that the funding is available for it before it gets to this table. And also the other thing that we're doing is double checking the agenda items to make sure that the account number and the funding source that is listed is what is being asked for in the actual request for payment.
Understood, and I completely understand that you can't explain what happened before you got here. I absolutely accept that. I think there have been, I don't think this is the only account where we have issues.
I would agree with you.
The question is, how do we drill down, figure it out, and figure out why it happened, and so it doesn't happen again? We're going to get nailed on an audit.
Yes.
And we should.
Yes.
We should get nailed on an audit. And we've got to put better controls in place so this doesn't occur.
And we have.
This is a big problem. So, and I appreciate you coming in and getting things straight. But this is a big problem.
Mayor,
Councilmember McKenzie?
I was thinking with my thoughts, right? I look at this as spilled milk. You can't cry over spilled milk. It's unfortunate that this has happened. I think the issue is for us as a governing body, when we come together and we vote on spending, we assume that the experts are going to let us know. And this is not on you, okay? I'm just looking at how this happened. And that's why I'm glad that you're putting these protocols into place for the future. The past is that we voted, and I believe that every vote that we made should be sacred, and every decision that this council has made should be adhered to unless this council would decide to change the vote. It is disheartening that projects that we thought would be funded have not been funded. So I think the thing now is to find the best way that we can move forward to honor the votes and keep our finances protected as well. So I feel like I said, myself just looking at if I had a project for my constituents and we were expecting for that to be done, it should be done. So it is what it is. It's my hope that we can find a way to find whatever these funds are and move forward to make sure that all these projects are done. Without, again, so basically, and that's why I was asking about. So now, for us to be able, what is the number? We're at 27 million in the general fund, in the reserves right now? What is the lowest that we can, I'm not trying to go low, but it's just, we got to do better. But how do we fix this now? So to take 1.4 and possibly $3.4 million from the reserves, where would that leave us right now? Would we still be at 50%?
No, you would be less than 50%, at around 45 or between 45 and 47%.
Are we looking, is there a possibility that there's any savings that we have in other areas that could be applied to this? You don't have to answer that, but
Okay.
those are the types of things that I think we have to look at.
Okay,
Yeah.
will do.
Okay.
Joe was first.
Councilmember Carn, Councilmember Gay, and then I've got another question.
Well, traditionally, we were far above 50%. And College Park was pretty unique in that standing. Having a solid fund reserve balance is very important to a city like ours because of our funding balance. We're not like your average city. Our funding and revenues depend very, very, very heavily on our hospitality mix, which includes airport-related, hotel, motel, mixed drink, ad valorem, so on and so forth. We have very little property tax and revenues that come from residential, like the city of South Fulton or more traditional cities that are mostly residential homes. That cushion was really necessary for us because, unlike other cities, if there was another COVID pandemic, 70% of our revenue streams dry up and shut down. If there is another, God forbid, a 9/11 situation, 70% of our revenues all but shut down. So unlike another, South Fulton would be able to cruise on. They only got 3 hotels. So that balance for us was a little more delicate than another city, whereas if something happened or some type of a calamity, we would be out, we would suffer more acutely from the loss of revenues than your average city would. So I think we definitely always have to keep that in mind. Being above 50%, I remember times we were 60%. And I always say I, for one, slept a lot better at night knowing that we had that cushion in that fund reserve balance. But we want to keep it. Now, we may not be able to get back up to the 60%, but it'd be nice. While at the same time, we got a lot of things that need to be done and developed and put together. City manager, we've got a 23-year-old convention center that hasn't had a major overhaul, and we're seeing some things outlive their useful life right now because of that fact, but that's understandable. So we've got dynamics and maintenance and things that other cities do not have, but that's part of the economic engine that keeps our hospitality economy growing, and where we do have the type of budget that we have. So we want to keep in mind it's a delicate ecosystem, I guess, so to speak. So that fund balance was a part of that because it's so delicate. We're a little more fragile than the average city. We make more money on a per capita basis than the average city, but we're a lot more fragile and exposed to things tanking pretty quickly where other cities can maintain. So I just want us all to keep that in mind.
Councilmember Gay?
Well, I agree with all y'all, but I want to say we are very solvent. Our fund balance is extremely healthy. And some of these funds are restricted. That goes to hospitality, can't be used for anything else. We got funds that are restricted that can't be used for anything else. So when you start segregating what funds can be used for what, we are extremely solvent. I understand you had to come down here, but I don't want you to take away that we're dangerously going into our general fund. That is just not the case. It's an extremely solvent, healthy fund balance. And keep in mind, we're a March people. we're 3 months away from our new fiscal year. And since I've been working up here, when we go do our budget, everything has been spent. I don't know if there's a way to go into the budgets to look at that. There are a lot of unspent dollars when we do our budget. So let's keep things in perspective.
I have a question.
Councilmember Arnold?
I'm trying to get a better understanding of this piece of paper that that was just handed to us. Can you explain exactly what's going on here? Because I'm definitely confused about the second to last item where it says Terry Jackson transfer from capital 7920 to parks 7851, $320,000. So is that supposed to be a credit?
From my understanding, that came out of the 7920 account. That account, when we got started, was at $2,002,000. The last thing that I was told that he did before he left is that he transferred $320,000 out of that account and put it into FY25 7851 account. He put it in the 75. It was FY25 he put it in. He transferred out of FY26 into FY25 7851, $320,000. So right then, we're already in a deficit of $320,000 in that account.
Question?
Councilmember McKenzie?
So you're saying, I just want to get clear. So you're saying that money that was for 2024-25 or FY25 was, so some of our money from this current fiscal year was transferred into the prior fiscal year, and it did not come to this council?
It was approved at council that he would transfer $300,000 into that account.
Okay.
But he actually transferred $320,000, is what Stephanie Britt said when I met with her, out of the 7920 account, which was FY26.
And that was to pay for things that were allocated in 2024?
That was supposed to go toward the parking lot lights and restriping at Phillips Park.
Were the lights and restriping at Phillips Park budgeted?
No, ma'am.
So it's my understanding that we typically have used tourism product development money to help with renovations at the convention center, because that would be an eligible cost. Correct, Ms. Hammond?
That's true.
But we're already short on TPD funds.
Well, actually what happens is,
And can you make sure you're at the microphone?
out of the general fund portion, there is a portion that is transferred to GICC every quarter.
So what is that balance?
Excuse me?
What is that balance?
I don't know offhand, I'm sorry.
Do you have any idea?
I have to get it for you. It looks like, I think thus far it's been around $5 million.
They just reported, Mayor, that transfers out at the bottom meeting was 5.2 million. So I need y'all to try and keep these conversations in perspective for the public. In other words, they get 61.
Councilmember, I have the floor. I know, I'm happy to acknowledge you after I'm done.
I'm sorry, I thought you
No, sir. Ms. Hammond, of the $27 million in reserves, how much of that is liquid?
Oh, all of the unreserved, undesignated is.
So none of that's dependent on funds owing
No.
funds owing each other?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Gay?
So just to be clear, 61.8% of our hospitality fund has been being used to subsidize the GICC. They just got 5.2 million. And nobody even came up here and asked for permission, so that's why I asked. But she answered the question. Some things I guess are budgeted.
correct.
So I'm gonna leave that
And
right
it's,
there.
it's 62.5%, that is
Yeah, I
the
mean,
general
from
fund.
my math, I think TPD, DMO, and I think they're all budgeted. I think statutorily, they're all budgeted. Now, how you keep them in what account, I can't answer, but I think they're all budgeted based on our legislation. The TPD is budgeted as 16.8%. The DMO, you don't never hear her down here saying she ain't got her money. She gets hers. So, I'm just saying,
The revenue portion is budgeted, but the expenses were not budgeted. That's where we're trying to correct.
no, I don't disagree. You're not trying to correct, you're trying to spend some of it. You're trying to,
Well, we're trying to put it in the budget so we can spend it.
right,
Yes.
right. And that's fair. That's what you should do. But it ain't like it ain't there to get. And then, it also gets, Mayor, the TPD fund gets approximately $1.87 million a year at the 15.8% of the hospitality budget. So it's gonna keep replenishing itself. And I don't think she's asking to pay all this money tomorrow. I think this is over a period of time as the projects work itself down. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Councilmember Carn?
And I agree with that, definitely. TPD funds are very, very important, but to keep it short and simple, if we want to keep TPD funds flowing, we also have to keep in mind what the engine of TPD is, and that's the engine of our hospitality environment, which is primarily going to be the GICC starting off with, and it's a kind of a spoke, wheel and spoke from out on from there, with hotels, rent-a-car, restaurants, and the like. So if we want to keep TPD funds flowing every year, the engine of the TPD must be in tip-top shape to make sure we get those visitors for those large conventions with those hotel room blocks, rent-a-cars, ad valorem tax, mixed drink tax, so that the whole economy keeps moving forward without placing the burden on residential. So we got to keep in mind how we keep TPD going. And again, GICC, we've been patching things as we go along. A convention center that's over 20 years old, generally it's an overhaul around that generational time cycle. We are dealing with piecemealing some repairs because we have not actually set up a process to refurbish after, the 20-year mark with the 23rd year now. So in terms of keeping that in mind, there's a lot of projects that have to have money spent on those projects that are in need, and all of those projects are valid projects. But TPD funds are crucial to making sure those projects are possible. But the main economic engine of TPD is making sure we're in the convention center in Hospitality City, which centers around the convention center, the campus itself, and the condition of the campus itself. So we all want to keep those funds flowing. We all want to look for more ways to use those funds, but to keep those funds moving, again, we have to make sure the fundamentals of how those funds are generated is sturdy, is stable, and is upkept and maintained. So I just think we ought to keep all of our priorities in mind, and everybody has a priority up here, me too. But I know at the end of the day, this hospitality money depends on our hospitality readiness. I think last week showed us all when we lost HVAC at the convention center, and we can't afford to do that. We've got repairs that are long overdue, and it affects all of our hotels. It affects our bookings. We're hospitality. City manager, if we ran a limo service as a hospitality service and we had first-class limousines, and somebody wanted to rent one of our limousines, say in July, they pay for that rental. If the air conditioner does not work in that limousine, you're not going to have a very pleasant time, and you're not going to use our company at all, and you're going to ask for your doggone money back. So we are a hospitality city, but we have to maintain what makes us a hospitality city, and it's a lot of components. We just got to keep our eye on the ball, and we want to spend money on great projects for our community. But our hospitality engines and the fundamentals make it so we can spend this money in our community. So let's just keep that in mind.
Mayor,
Wait, hold on. Councilmember Arnold, and Councilmember Gay, and I'll come back to
And
McKenzie.
then Mackenzie.
Okay, so first, I want to thank Councilwoman McKenzie for her comments earlier in reference to, us making a decision about allocating funds in the budget for specific projects. Those projects in particular, and two of the projects that are being affected by this, based on what I see, are impacting Ward 3, and they're large projects. Now, the work has already began when it comes to Zup Park, as far as the consultant work for the plans for that playground, along with the work for the community house at the TWRC. Those are both in progress, along with the fact that we also have a bid that is waiting, that has already been awarded for the work at the TWRC, at that community house. And so these are projects that have been shared with the community when we were going through the budget process, that these activities were going to take place. And so I have, just like anyone else that would be sitting up here advocating for their ward, I have a deep concern that these projects have been shared with constituents. They are looking forward to them coming to fruition, and there's a possibility that we may have to do something that is really unconventional for us to consider utilizing reserve funds. That is bothering me. I do want to make sure that I share that, but I do appreciate the conversation earlier that, we talked about, doing these projects, we voted on it, and we should make sure that we honor what we voted on along with what we've promised to the constituents. I don't know how we're going to make that happen. I do hope that there are some funds that are available in cost savings where we can identify the resources that are needed to go ahead and push the contract through to the winning bidder, because I don't know whether or not if that's going to sit around. I don't know if there are any rules around how long we can have a organization or a vendor that has won a bid to just sit there and wait for us to find the funds. And then also along with the work that has already been done through MetroCorp as far as the consultant is concerned and his work. How long do we have him to wait to get paid for drawing up these plans and us owing him for the work that has been completed?
Councilmember Gay?
Yeah, I just want to comment. I agree with all my colleagues, and Councilman Warren, I'm with you. I think all the projects need to get funded. But I just want to say for the record, the arena, you said the GIC's been here, what, 20, how many years? So we've refinanced it 3 times, right? When I was on council, I voted against refinance because I was always trained that you pay off your mortgage. But we've been told at that very podium to refinance it 3 times. Now, there's one thing that I would like to see. I would like for us to see if we can take the refinance bond debt out of the GICC and to Councilmember Cohen's point, let's let the hospitality money pay the bond debt. Because what I'm hearing is, if it wasn't for the bond debt, the GICC and the arena would be breaking even. Right now, it's costing us $3.5 million to subsidize the GIC, the arena, and $2.5 million to subsidize. So what am I saying? I'm saying you go into business to at least break even. I mean, that's all I know. I'm not the smart, but I always taught you go in business to break even. But my point is, I'm being told that if the bond debt wasn't part of their expenses, they would break even. So I would like for us to look at how we can test that, because if that's the case, the roofs and other repairs should be being paid for by the cash that we get in on the hospitality fund, which is the 15.8% every year. That's what I always thought, how you keep, and then we do all want a project, but let's look at history. Let's look at our council history. I sat right up here when we voted $45 million for the arena. That was the will of my colleagues. 45 million, we told the city manager, go get $10 million out of the general fund. So in order to know where you're going, you gotta know where you came from. We told that city manager, go get $10 million out the general fund now, and go give it to a company over there to start building on it. So when I sit up here since 2015, I'm processing everything that happened, not just tonight. So, hey, let's look at what the refinancing bond debt is costing us and see how that is impacting the revenue side of the arena and the GICC. Let's look at a funding source to cover that bond debt. Then let's make the arena and the GICC break even.
Councilmember McKenzie?
While we're on our wish list, piggybacking on Councilman Carn and agreeing with Councilwoman Arnold and piggybacking on Councilman Gay, I'd like to put the egg before the chicken. And we give of our revenue, talking about hospitality, Councilman Carn, we give our DMO approximately $2.5 million, $2.4 million a year to advertise this city. And I believe that if we could do a better job at advertising our city, we might be able to generate some more revenue to go into that hospitality fund. So I'm going to be talking about that again some more at another date. But I think that I agree with what you're saying in terms of we need to look into what we need to do with those, what the money that we're spending right now. But I also think that I'm an I've done so much, but I was an advertising executive. And one of the things, if you don't advertise, if you put negative advertising out there about your city, and if you're not accentuating the positives and doing everything you can, we've got all these hotels that need to stay booked all the time. We've got restaurants where we need to sell. Again, last meeting, we passed legislation so that we could even put more restaurants that could serve alcohol so they can bring us taxes. So what we just need to do is do a better job at advertising what we have, bring more revenue into this city, in addition to working smart. So work smart, have people like yourself, Ms. Hammond. Again, we're happy to have you to make sure that these finances are handled properly. This was not something that the governing body has been aware of, but now you brought it to our attention, and we've got to figure out how to navigate through this current situation. We got to figure out how to make good on the promises that we have made to our constituents, but we also have to be faithful stewards to these finances. So again, let's do what we can do right now to fix this situation, but let's look to the future and see how we can avoid it and how we can do better at building this College Park better.
Councilmember Carn?
Last thing, because I know we got to move on real quick. City Manager, I agree. I think we need to take a serious look at our DMO and their hospitality funds and their system right now. But, if the hospitality fund were paid off, the bond debt, I don't think nearly any of these projects may not be possible in terms of extra projects. The last time I checked, we had about 16 bond instruments, they're about outstanding bond debt projects. The majority of those were in and around the hospitality campus, which understandable, that makes sense. The GICC will likely never turn a profit, as no convention center actually does. But it works to, again, serve the broader interest of the city in keeping the resident. This is why we're able to lower the millage rate. This is why seniors pay no property taxes in College Park. We have to keep in mind the system that we have. I spend a lot of time looking for free money and funding and so on and so forth. The Glideways project, for instance, that's a $7 million investment in the convention center campus, but it's tuned to attract more visitors to the city of College Park, more restaurants, more conventions, and hotel room nights. If you're looking at the Cobb Galleria or the new Clayton Center, and hey, we've got autonomous vehicles, and we have more attractions, and we look more attractive, and we're more convenient, that's going to be worth something to us. But every department is connected, and city manager, how we're functioning this year is so very important to make sure everything works right. We got a dual hotel right now on deck set to move forward, and it hasn't moved forward. And it is just so important that we move forward with those projects and many others to bring in those new revenues. We have been plagued with a lot of development issues in terms of developers coming in and having a horrific time getting processed through the process. I'll just leave it at that. City manager, I think you know what I'm talking about. So all of this is connected. The North Side project, that would have brought in a lot of revenues. They ran into a lot of red tape. So we there's a lot of things we need to look at and do, and we really need to take a serious look at overall what we're doing and what we need to do and what we're not bringing in, and the projects that are revenue generators. We want to make sure those are a top priority so we can have extra revenues to do these other projects we want to do. So
Mayor,
I'll leave it at that.
one point to come in.
Councilmember Gay, and this is the last comment.
BIDA owes the general fund $9 million. That 300 acres of dirt sitting over there, we done dumped $5 million over there in the so-called name of development. You need to get BIDA to pay back the general fund. That's your $9 million right there. The second thing I want to tell you is it don't owe $9 million. It owed $9 million last time I checked.
How much do they
Wait,
owe?
hold on.
I already
Councilmember
owe
Gay
$9.
has the floor.
But-
Go right
but
ahead.
The point I'm making is, let's not beat up on TPD. Like somebody said earlier, the mayor said it. I'm sure all these budgets, there's a conversation. But I do know BIDA owes the general fund. And the other thing I want to tell you is that there are a lot of eligible use of funds that DMO could be covering too. I mean, we act like that they don't exist, but they do exist. Last time I checked, they had $9 million in the account. Then the last time I checked, $5 million went to Citizen Trust Bank. When I sit up here and advocated for a minority bank, I don't even get a thank you card. Okay? They got $9 million in their account, and they get, what, $2 million a year? And they can't pay for a festival, they can't pay for an event that bring in thousands of people. We need to have that's why you got to be careful about these conversations, because they get into other conversations. All this stuff is connected. So we need to have a conversation about DMO and what projects that we're talking about that are eligible use of those funds that can come out of DMO. I'd like to put that out there. Tell BIDA to pay its debt and look at some other sources of revenue.
All right. And I'm just going to close and say we need to spend money like it's ours and not somebody else's, because it isn't ours. And I think, like I said, Ms. Hammond, I think we're going to get nailed on the audit. I think there's a lot of instances of us using
Not if
spending.
Jake and Molly do
I
it, we not.
have the floor.
They don't find material findings. They give us a medal every year.
Councilmember, I have the floor. And the spending on things that we did not budget for, I think has plagued our accounts for a while. And I'm also deeply cognizant of the fact that our employees watch this. They watch our meetings. And we are talking about moving millions upon millions of dollars in lots of different directions. And at some point, I hope in the near future, that we can have a conversation about compensating them as well. And it is 7:42. We will pick up at 8.
Madam Mayor, did you see my